I hate being shushed. But once it brought about maybe one of the most magical moments of my life. I was in Zimbabwe, and it was when Robert Mugabe was losing power, right? And it had been a long coup, right? There had been lots of lack of sleep, and I had been sent off to find out, we'd all been in Harare, and we had been there. I'd been there from before he got sent out of power, and had been on the streets when the people finally poured onto them and the army did nothing. And they were chanting, "You must go rest now, go rest now." And the joy, it's electric, right? There's something electric about when people finally are not afraid. And it was amazing. And then there were so many journalists and people there and so many BBC teams there. The bosses said, "We want you to go off into the countryside and find out what the countryside thinks." And A, I was tired, and B, I think I wanted to stay in the capital. I think that's roughly what I remember about this. So I went off into the bushes, and it had been a hard trip. We had been working like dogs, trying to pull together something any different, because right after a certain point, right, it all starts to sound the same, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, but I already had a voice like that. Oh, I don't know what," and you're just like, "Why are we doing this?" And we had stayed at a lodge that had a generator so that we could use it to power my laptop to edit the radio package. And it was such a difficult edit. We had to stay up all night to edit it and to send it in. That I remember. I remember the generator sputtering like into death, and I thought, "Oh my God, we've killed another one." I always felt like we just managed to outstay our welcome at the very end. But we pulled something together. The generator sputtered into death, and then somebody did something in London that vexed me. And would it have vexed me so much if I'd slept? Maybe not, but it vexed me royally. Something had, been wrong. And I wandered off on the phone, probably speaking quite loudly about what they had done wrong, what had gone on air the hour previously that was completely incorrect and had to be fixed, and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, pacing like a wild animal or a news producer. And suddenly this man appears out of nowhere and goes, "Shh." I mean, it wasn't that aggressive. It was like a shh. Except I took it quite badly. I was like, "You don't shush me." Except I have been shushed. I've been shushed all over the place because I have quite a loud voice. My BBC colleagues always said that I don't even need a microphone. And I always find it insulting. Although as a speaker, it's quite useful. And I thought, "I'm on the phone," I say. And he's like, kind of, his hands, and he's like, "Shh." And I'm like, "I am on the phone." And it's like, "I'm doing something important, buddy. Like, what, you can't rake while I tell this person that, whatever they've done is horrible?" And he looks down and looks sort of confused. And I think he's just trying to figure out probably what drugs is this woman on? And this time he raises one hand, he says, "Shh." And with the other hand, he points. And I stop just a moment and I look. And everything changes. My perspective completely changes. I am no longer in anger with London about something that happened in the last hour that must not be done again. I am looking at an entire herd of elephants, including babies, right behind me. And this gentleman was simply trying to stop me from being trampled by my loud shouting into the phone about something which, if I can't tell you what it was, it really didn't matter, right? I said to London, thanks, I'll call you back, and hung up the phone. And instead, I watched an entire herd of elephants play, including babies. Baby elephants getting mud with their trunks and spraying each other. It was magical. It was wondrous. I can see it right now. That poor man, who I did apologize fulsomely to, by the way, he also was like, why don't you stand back a bit? Because Africans know that elephants can kill you, and a lot of us come and are like, oh, it's amazing. So we did step back a little. But everything else fell away. I was so caught up with my blinders on that I couldn't see what was, right behind me. They could have reached out and tapped me with their trunk. And when I stopped and took that moment of wonder and joy, I was able to let go of everything else. It just took a moment. And it not only stuck with me, then it sticks with me now in terms of the stories I tell and how I want you to experience the world, Africa, Zimbabwe. I'm like, don't just think about, coos. I want you to think about baby elephants giving each other mud baths. I'm still not perfect at it. I still wasn't perfect on that trip. I was again, I think, bemoaning my fate. And I was on the phone to someone that you've heard of before. If you've seen any of my other videos, Cookie. I'd said, they sent us out here and etc. And we did this thing and they didn't even run it high enough. So I guess then I did remember what it was. And I told him where I was. And at that point we moved up. We were at a safari camp. I could see from my window out into the savannah. Later that day, I would go for a walk with a lame cheetah. He was lame, so he couldn't live with other cheetahs, so he just was sort of semi-wild and like a big kitty, and he purred. And Cookie said to me, Marshall, do you know where I am? And I said, no, Cookie, I don't. He said, I'm stuck in traffic on the M4, and I've just come from interviewing a woman whose husband killed her children. Perspective, Marshall, perspective. And he hung up the phone. And I deserved that phone hang up, I'm going to tell you that one. And I'm not saying we should always, I'm not saying we should disallow our feelings, but we should be present to the wonder when it's there, right? Don't be so lost in the imagined, slights or what went before or what might go wrong that you don't see. You might, the herd of elephants right in front of you or the walk you're about to take with a baby cheetah. There will be something pretty amazing right now going on. So be on the lookout.